But your nickname at uni was Disco.
Yeah.
Right. So why? First of all, why is that? Why were you called Disco?
I'm not 100% sure. I think I did enjoy a bit of action on the dance floor in the students' union. I'm assuming there's a bit of an alliteration with Disco Dave, and it kind of just, I suppose, it just stuck.
It gives me great pleasure to welcome to the Sports Dentistry podcast this week, David Sutherland. Thanks for joining us, David.
No problem.
So this is the first time we've got to chat as well, so I'm quite looking forward to this conversation. But just to start, give us a bit of your background and how you got into dentistry and your sporting links as well.
You go into, I suppose, when you're at school, you're forced to choose some subjects with your teachers with what you want to do. I wasn't really sure, and we had a family friend that was a dentist. His advice was, living in the west of Scotland, a dentist will never be short of work. And I quite liked, I did a bit of work experience when you're at school with him. I quite liked the fact that your day seemed quite varied. It was different. You didn't really know what the challenges were going to be when folk came in the door. A combination, I suppose, of the hands-on stuff and the sort of using your brain to sort of work things out as well. And then applied for Glasgow and Dundee. Didn't get into Glasgow. That was my first choice. Preferred to go there. Got into Dundee and ended up probably one of the sort of sliding doors moments. Probably the best decision that happened to me. Having to move away from home when I was 18. Learn to look after myself, cook my dinners, do my washing, and had a brilliant time up in Dundee for 6 or 7 years up there.
So you were brought up close to Glasgow then, was it? Is that why you preferred to go to Glasgow?
Town called Hamilton, and probably sport was one of the main reasons I didn't want to leave. My family, my dad's involved or has been involved in rugby. I grew up where rugby is a big part of my childhood. Played for my local club, going through the age groups, and was kind of at sort of 17, 18, kind of just on the cusp of breaking through into the sort of the first 15, which was I suppose a goal. You don't, when you're that age, I don't think you really have goals. You just kind of want to keep progressing through the levels. But I was kind of on the edge of that, and had thought if I can stay in Glasgow, I would just play rugby for Hamilton and live in a 5 mile radius of my house for the next sort of 30 years. And by not getting into Glasgow, I wouldn't say my world was turned upside down, but I certainly was taken out of my comfort zone. It was quite quick. I was waiting on grades coming back from what would it be, SQA. I didn't get the grades I needed to get into Glasgow, and I was offered a position at Dundee. So it was very, very, very quickly up to Dundee, have a look around. All the good halls of residences were full at that point because everybody had been in them. So I was stuck at it was called Wimberley. I'm actually not sure it's even still there, but the original ones for Nine Wells Hospital that the doctor slept in. So you were about, I don't know, maybe a mile out of the university campus. So it was good. It was great. In hindsight, as I say, the best thing that happened to me going up there. But at the time, I wasn't overly chuffed that I was going because I just wanted to stay and study dentistry at Glasgow and play rugby for Hamilton.
Well, that's interesting because I had the total opposite. I applied for Glasgow, didn't get in, and I'm born and bred Dundee, and we lived literally like a 15-minute walk from the dental hospital. And I was like, I don't want to move away. Well, I never got into Glasgow, but I was like, I don't want to move away from Dundee because I was training with cricket at the time, and I was doing a lot of national stuff and a similar sort of thing. And I always stayed at home because it was just convenient for me. But then as I grew a bit older, I was like, oh, look at all these people who are living away from home, getting a little bit more freedom and stuff. And I suppose that's why being on tour with cricket kind of gave me that release and gave me that freedom to kind of be away. But just while we're on uni, two things I want to ask you, which I've been meaning to ask you for a number of years. I've just never had a chance to do it. But your nickname at uni was Disco.
Yeah.
Right. So why? First of all, why is that? Why were you called Disco?
I'm not 100% sure. I think I did enjoy a bit of action on the dance floor in the students' union. I'm assuming there's a bit of an alliteration with Disco Dave, and it kind of just, I suppose, it just stuck. And going by some of the other nicknames that were getting bandied around, there was a lot worse going. So I didn't try and argue it too much. I think it was so just kind of keep your head down and accept it. But it's funny now. I get from school. I was David Sutherland. My mates, all my schoolmates call me Suthers, but I still see guys I know from Dundee that you maybe don't see for 5 or 6 years, and they shout disco at you, and you're like, oh my god, they're calling me that again. But that's just again, there was guys I went through 5 years at uni with, and you didn't really know their real names, you just knew them as their nicknames.
That's sport though, isn't it? That's sport.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
call people by their nicknames, because my wife's always like, why are you talking about these guys? Like, what's the real name? I'm like, that's a great question. I don't actually know what the real name is.
I'm not sure. Until you start reading team sheets or programs and you see their names, you're like, oh yeah, okay, I get that.
You were also president of the student association as well. When you were there, right? You were president as well, were you not?
Of the dental school.
Oh, the dental school, yeah. Of the dental school
the
student
dental
association.
School. Yeah.
How did you find that role? Like being involved with that, with trying to deal with students and organisation?
It was interesting. It was kind of one of these things that when you got to fourth year, they had a committee and they were responsible for organising the social aspect, basically the social calendar of the dental school. And there was a lot of events that just rolled on from year to year, and you just sort of took the lead and organised that. I think they have a night in the dental school. I imagine they still do it, and folk, you go up and you say a spiel about why you think you'd be good at the job, and folk have a vote. And yeah, I ended up becoming the president. It sounds a lot more sort of glamorous than it actually is. You basically go around and try and negotiate with the local pubs or hotels to host dental events. And I think that the great thing that I found about the dental school at uni is you spend a lot of time from sort of second year onwards. You're pretty much there. You only get 6 weeks holiday, so the rest of the university goes home, and you are there. Even the medics are away. So the dentists is throughout the years that you're there, the second year, third year, fourth year, they're the only ones that are really on campus for about 2 or 3 months in the summer. So the group of dental folk become fairly sociable. Say exactly again, similar to yourself. My wife is a dentist. She was in the year above me. We met at Dundee Dental School because dentists seem to hang about with dentists. So I think it was the number of folk that met at Dundee Dental School or Glasgow Dental School. It's alarming how many folk don't speak to other people and end up with dentists. But the role at the dental school was good. It again taught you a bit of responsibility. You had to go to meetings with the dean and meetings with the hierarchy of the dental school, and you were a kind of liaison between the student body and the powers that be that ran it. So it was good. You got your name up on the board on the wall in the dental hospitals. Every time you go back, you can go and have a look at that and then cringe at how many years ago it is now. There's about 25 names after your name now. It's it makes you feel old.
I can relate a little bit to wanting to stay at home. Like we all went to Belfast, but then we would have went back home at the weekend, so you're only really a student during the week. And I always thought, would it have been a better experience to actually go and do dentistry at one of the UK universities where you actually had the experience that you said? But what I did pick up on there was that you applied for Glasgow and Dundee. Would you not have? Was you no interest in going to England to go to university, or is that just?
Yeah, I don't think my dad was too keen on having to fork out the.
Oh, it's a different fee system, was it?
Yeah. It's a very in Scotland. It's a very what's the word I'm saying? There's a good incentive to stay in Scotland, because the fees are there aren't any fees.
There's fees,
yeah. So it's
very good.
I think I don't actually know why I didn't apply. It was just always, it was only Glasgow and Dundee, and it was no other subjects I applied for. So it was kind of all my eggs were in one basket.
And then with regards to the rugby, did you still try to play for Hamilton, or did you play then up in Dundee? Or how was that transition for you?
So my first year at university, Dundee did a pre-dental year. So I didn't get into first year of dental school. I got into pre-dental, which was a brilliant year. It was effectively for folk that maybe had done 2 of the 3 sciences or hadn't done. I didn't do biology at school. I crashed human biology, I think, but they didn't say that was not. But anyway, I got in, did pre-dental year. So my first year was basically like 12 hours a week of lectures and labs.
Okay.
And then I was travelling back a bit to play for Hamilton, thinking I could do it. And as the season I got to about Christmas, I was just like, what am I doing? I'm like, you're leaving to go down to training on a Thursday night. I ended up only training once a week and then not training every 2 weeks. And it's not possible. It's an hour and a half away. There was a couple of guys that lived in Stirling that you'd get up the road halfway with them, and then you've got another hour on top of that to get back to Dundee. And as much as I would like to have made it work, it just wasn't practical. So I started playing for the university rugby team as a sort of fresher and joined towards the end of that sort of first year Dundee High School FP, the local sort of club team. There was a lot of guys. At that time, there was quite a big crossover between the university and the club. There were a lot of guys that came to university and then would play for the club and sort of vice versa. So it was kind of the best of both worlds, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think that kind of leads us on quite nicely to why we've got you on the podcast, because we're not talking here about dentistry the whole time, but you do something quite unique for someone who is a dentist, who works full-time, has a practice with your wife. Can you just give the listeners a bit of an insight into what that is? Because I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, so after playing rugby for a number of years, I didn't have a specific injury that made me give up, but I had you're getting older, you're worried about going in to fix folks' teeth on a Monday with broken fingers or broken wrists, or your eyes split and they think you've been fighting in the taxi queue on a Saturday night. And actually, you say unique, but it was a friend from Dundee. He's a bit older than me, a guy called Neil Patterson, he's a guy from Northern Irish, dentist. And Paddy, I played rugby a bit with him at the tail end of his career, and then he got into refereeing and was pretty successful referee as well. And I became a referee because I wanted to stay involved in the game. I didn't really fancy coaching at that time. Again, it's quite a big commitment. And I thought reffing would be A, a good way to stay involved, and B, I'd seen sort of the trajectory that Paddy had got onto and quite liked the look of it. He managed to get onto the World Sevens as a referee, and I quite fancied the idea of jetting around the world refereeing sevens.
That must be something you pick up if you go to Dundee University, because Umar loves jetting around the world too.
Yeah. I think naively you think it's great. And then a Holiday Inn in Manchester's the same as a Holiday Inn in South Africa, the same as a Holiday Inn in Wellington or wherever you may go. But it was really sort of being mates with Paddy, seeing how he'd done with his refereeing. I sort of started and I sort of dabbled a bit. I was still, by this time we'd moved back to Glasgow and I played 3 or 4 seasons at Hamilton. Kind of sort of went full circle and went back, and it was great. It was still a few of my mates from school that were playing, so it was really good. But I was just getting too old, I think, to get your body battered about every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And sort of one season had just I thought, right, I think it was maybe 29 or something like that, and I thought, right, I could probably play another few seasons, then start reffing, or do I actually want to try and give reffing a proper go and get into it? And I started, and it was just at the time, there was a guy called Tapa Henning, ex-South African referee. So Tapa had come in, Scottish Rugby had employed him with a view to setting up a referee development pathway. There hadn't been a Scottish international referee at the top table for, a number of years. I think the last main guy called Jim Fleming, who'd been involved in like the 1999 World Cup, 2003 World Cup, and that's how far back it had gone. There'd been a few guys here or there, but Tapa's, I suppose, remit was to get Scottish folk at the top table again. And that, fortunately for me, was when I was just sort of starting out, and I've kind of jumped on that sort of pathway and sort of kept going with it, I suppose.
How did you find that transition then? I think looking from other sports as a referee from the outset anyway, and from playing a number of sports, including rugby, the referees get a little bit more respect from the players in rugby as it would the other sports, but it still wouldn't be an easy transition, was it, to go from playing to referee?
In terms of the players, I've never refereed football, but I've been down the park and watched amateur games or kids games. The players and a football referee will get much more abuse from punters on the side and players. In my experience, probably the biggest, most difficult thing I found was I was a bit older, and look, there was loads of guys. There was some kids at sort of 17, 18 that were starting out at refereeing at the same time, and you would turn up at a club on a Saturday yourself with the remit of, a guy would phone you on Thursday night, these two teams are playing, you drive to Edinburgh on your own, you turn up and you're expected to referee 30 adults battering each other for an hour and a half. And I suppose going from a team environment where I loved getting a bus with my mates every Saturday to the games, and you'd chat in the games, you'd play rugby together, and then you'd sit and have a few beers on the bus on the way home. Turning up on your own and then doing the game, you go into the clubhouse at the end, and as always, there was one old guy would come and speak to you at the end, sort of thing, and question why did you do that, or why wasn't that a try? Why was he not yellow carded? But you were kind of a bit on your own, and then as you sort of progress up, you start working with assistant referees. You kind of get a bit of that team environment back again, where there's maybe three of you going, or to the extent now where you go away maybe to a European match, and there's Scottish referee, two assistants, a Scottish video referee, so there's like 4 or 5 of you going, and you get that, I suppose, that camaraderie back, which is really good. But it's just a different mentality, I suppose, to going when you're going to play.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. And so, I suppose it's really difficult for young referees and maybe somebody that hasn't played trying to go to referee to go on their own and referee a game.
Yeah.
I sampled refereeing at Irish sports. I decided to go back more. But it's I didn't realise that how lonely it can be until I was doing it, because you're just turning up on the ground that you weren't used to, refereeing against two teams, and then you're getting back in your car by yourself, and away you go, compared, as you said, to a team environment where you're back in the change rooms and analysing the game together and things like that. I suppose starting off as a referee, it's mentally quite challenging in a number of ways.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to be fairly thick-skinned, and I think everybody's got their different motivations, their different goals for doing it, and I was always kind of, you have to sort of start at the bottom and work your way up, and I suppose one of the main sort of satisfaction thing is that I sort of did that. I started off refereeing the kids under 16s on a Sunday, and then you get a men's third team game on a Saturday, and then you do somebody would come and watch you and assess you and say, he knows roughly what he's doing, we'll give him a higher level game, and you keep sort of going up the pecking order, and the higher up you get, again, the more pressure you get comes with the games, the more pressure there is to perform, the more folk that are watching, and some of the first games you do, there's literally nobody's watching you. You're there with just the players, and then you get up and you're doing games and there's, I don't know, a couple of thousand folk watching you. Sometimes it's easier, the more folk that are there, you don't hear as much. When there's only 1 or 2 folk shouting at the side, you hear everything.
I think that's what my question would be, Dave, is that you were just recently, I saw you at the Scotland-England game, and you were working that day as well, and there's a lot of people. I suppose it becomes maybe a bit muffled because there's so many voices, isn't there? If there's less people, you can probably hear it a bit more clearly. Talking about being thick-skinned, you have to be thick-skinned in dentistry as well, because you always feel that you're always trying to perform. Well, you are trying to perform at your best as well, and some patients might not see it that way. Have you taken anything from dentistry and been able to utilise it in refereeing and vice versa?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the skills are completely different fields, but there's a lot of skills that are absolutely transferable across. I think most of it, and I think the refereeing comes down to managing individuals, and you spend your day managing 30 individuals, 25, how many folk you're seeing in and out your chair every hour. And the way you get some folk that you have to be fairly strict with, you get some folk you have to give a hard time, you get the teenager who doesn't brush that you have to get stuck into and get them to doing a bit more, and then you get the granny who's her husband's just passed away, and you have to go sort of softly, and it's how your people skills adapt. And refereeing's no different. There's times that you can try and you have a joke with the players and you try and say, oh yeah, sorry lads, I missed that. They're shouting at you for a knock on. Well, yeah, sorry lads, if I've missed it sort of thing. And then 3 minutes later, you're the same guy, you're having to give him the eyes and give him a bit of a hard time because he's stepped out of line. And it's that, I think the people management and the soft skills about how you interact with those people are absolutely transferable between the two.
And then quite interested to hear about the preparation you put in for refereeing, because obviously it's not just a case of just turning up. I know in some sports, is there minimum fitness standards as well? Does that happen in rugby, where you have to have minimum fitness standards and then rules? You obviously get tested on the rules and things as well.
Yeah, laws of the game.
Laws, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm at the moment in Scotland. There's I think it's now called the High Performance Elite Referees Panel. Quite a fancy title, but I think there's about 10 of us on that. That's a combination of contracted full-time referees, of which there's 3 in Scotland, and then the rest are made up of other guys like myself who do it as a hobby, but do it aside their other jobs as well. And that's a combination of other guys who are referees, I say guys, there are girls involved in the panel as well, but other people who are referees, assistant referees and TMOs. So I'm kind of at the point in my career where as a referee in the middle of the pitch, I'm doing less stuff. There's probably not the pathway for me to develop in the professional game any further at this stage. However, I do a lot of assistant referees appointments, and I've started doing a bit of TMOing, so the video match official, which again, it's good to be involved. I enjoy it. I don't think I enjoy it as much as being either on the pitch or at the side of the pitch. But for all those sort of on that panel, there has to be a minimum fitness requirement. We get the dreaded Bronco test every now and again. Amazing the number of guys that cars break down, or children are sick, or hamstrings get tight when that comes out. So we have to do a Bronco, and there's law exams. We have meetings on about a monthly basis just to really talk about trends and things that we're seeing in the game. So, for example, the 3 contracted referees were involved in the Six Nations over the last sort of couple of months. There's one of the younger boys who's been doing some of the under-20 Six Nations, and they'll be away having camps and meetings and reviews after each of the round of that competition. And we'll then sit as a group of Scottish officials, and they'll bring that information back so that what's been fed to them at World Rugby comes back to us at Scottish Rugby, and then we can try and implement that when we go out, whether that's in the URC, it's in Champions Cup, or other sort of international stuff that we do have.
In sports dentistry, it's not just about treating injuries. It's about optimizing oral health for peak performance.
That's right, because when athletes push their limits, every detail matters, even their oral health.
That's why the Sports Dentistry podcast is being powered by Philips, true innovators in oral health technology.
Philips Sonicare toothbrushes use advanced sonic technology to disrupt plaque biofilm, removing up to 20 times more plaque than a manual brush.
And that's critical for athletes. With high carb diets, dry mouth, and frequent energy supplements, there are greater risk of caries and gum disease.
Philips backs evidence-based dentistry, giving us tools that fit perfectly into performance-driven treatment plans.
So whether you're helping your athletes recover, protect, or perform,
elevate your protocol with Philips. And how do you find juggling your time with working full-time and doing this as well? Because being away from family and taking days away and things, how are you able to manage and cope with that?
So before we had kids, I was very fortunate. I think you know Mike Blackie. Mike's involved at Glasgow War. So when I moved back to Glasgow, I randomly got a job with Mike. Not randomly, he's a practice in the West End of Glasgow. I didn't know Mike, and then found out at the job interview he was involved in rugby and spent more time talking about rugby than we did about dentistry. And he offered me the job the next day. And Mike was very, very understanding about, as long as I wasn't taking the mick and taking days and days and days and days. But if I needed a Friday afternoon off because I had to travel to France for a game, or I was going to be late back on a Monday morning because I'd been travelling away from a game, he was very good, very understanding about giving me the time. And my wife and I have subsequently bought our own practice. So when you're your own boss, it does make it a bit easier.
Easier for time off, but not as easy.
Easier for time off. And then having kids makes it harder as well. It's going back to the point about there's some of a hotel when it sounds like you're travelling to France, you're travelling to Wales, or all these, well, maybe not Wales as exotic places, but you're travelling all these places for rugby. And sometimes you fly in, you stay in the hotel, you do the game the next day, and then you're straight to the airport at 6 a.m. to get back, sort of thing. So it's not as rock and roll a lifestyle as some folk think it is. And having said that, there have been times that we've had, you go away with your mates and you do a game and you stay out and you sort of celebrate, or you go out and enjoy your sort of each other's company. So I think it's finding the balance. I'm in the fortunate position where I'm not contracted, and refereeing to me is a hobby because I love rugby. I love watching rugby, being involved in rugby. But equally, if they say you've got a game in wherever tomorrow, you have to go, I say, I'm sorry, I can't do that, I'm not available, and that's the end of it. Whereas if it's your contracted job and they say you have to go to South Africa tomorrow for 2 weeks, then there's no debate, you have to go, sort of thing. So yeah, as much as I would love to have been contracted, it probably wouldn't have worked with the job and the lifestyle and the family. But I can't.
And did you buy a practice did you buy a practice in Glasgow? The way you've set
just
up?
A place called East Kilbride, so it's about 20 minutes outside Glasgow.
But the Six Nations was just finished.
Yeah.
Get your opinion on a couple of things. First of all, your opinion on the French not showing replays.
There's a running joke amongst not the rugby fraternity, but certainly France are notorious for the TV directors finding things that will benefit France and putting it on the big screen, and the crowd start booing and hissing and making a scene of it, and things that will be advantageous for France not to be shown disappear. There's forward passes that are never seen again. I think across the board, I think France are probably the deserving winners.
Oh, they were.
It would have really cut me deep as a Scotsman if we'd managed to beat Ireland on Saturday and then France had snatched the tournament off us with an 83rd minute penalty goal. So I don't think there could be too many complaints. They seem to be the best team this year.
They're the best team. The second thing was, I'd like to understand this process. So whoever that runs Six Nations apologised for Italy for the try that was ruled out of a try against Ireland for a forward pass. Now, during the game, it was play on. And then when it went to TMO, it was overturned. Yeah. And then subsequently, the Six Nations apologised to Italy. Explain how that whole sort of process would have went from, first of all, on the pitch, how the TMO gets involved, and then what sort of review would have went on after the match.
After the match, yeah. Okay, so that was one of our colleagues, so Holly Davidson. So that was her first Six Nations sort of appointment, and she refereed the game very, very well.
Yeah, all the players and all, I think even the Italian player came out and gossiped with her and stuff after. So there was no issues with the refereeing on the time, but it was quite interesting how that scenario played out.
I think that what we found in rugby, and as I started to move into the world of TMO in a bit, rugby is not a black and white sport. There is a lot of grey in the middle, and I think the issue we were having maybe 3 or 4 years ago was games were lasting 2 hours, 2 and a bit hours, because every 10 minutes we would stop, we would put something on the screen, the referees would gather around the screen, we'd watch 3 minutes of replays on something that, if we're having to watch it for 3 minutes, is it that clear that it's wrong, sort of thing? And I think there's a lot of other sports where you use hockey and tennis, hockey and cricket, where it's just black and white. It's either the ball's on the line or the ball's not on the line. And yes, with tries and touch and stuff like that in rugby, you can get that to an extent, but a lot of it is grey and a lot of it's interpretation. And then where do you lose? We're trying to get perfection. Where do you lose it as a spectacle? And fans were walking away because they're going, well, I've just watched that game for 2 hours, but I don't understand how's he given a red card for that tackle in the first half, and it's, from what they see, is the same thing and it's different. So they was trying to get a bit of consistency across it. There was also the attempt from the referee and sort of group or fraternity to simplify things, and they brought in these orange cards where a referee will have a look at it on the screen, will just go, yeah, that meets a threshold, we don't need to watch it 10 times, we'll just put it off the pitch and somebody else will deal with it to speed the game up.
This is the yellow for review, is it?
Yeah, so you can give a yellow card, and then somebody at the side of the pitch, his job is to determine whether that's going to be upgraded to a permanent red card or a 20-minute yellow card. And that just takes a lot of the decision making. There's pros and cons to everything. Takes a bit of the decision making away from the referee, as in he doesn't spend 5 minutes deliberating over a decision. Somebody else at the side of the pitch does that for him. Now, folk will argue the referee's the main person, they should be doing it. Other folk, the rationale is it allows the game to sort of speed up and as a spectacle, as a sport, become more entertaining rather than such sort of stop-start. But to go back to your original question, so the TMO's got the ability to come in if he thinks there's clear evidence to overturn an on-field decision. So I think from memory, there'd been a big long forward pass, or a big long pass. Italy had scored a nice try, and the TMO came in and said it was a forward pass. And again, it's a lot of it's subjective. What you're looking, I think, from my experiences, you can try and use lines on the pitch to help you, but they can sometimes hinder you. And I think from memory,
this time,
I think the boy threw the pass from behind the 22 and somebody caught it in front of the 22. Now, you're not taking into consideration momentum and things like that, but I think what you got to look for, or what we're told to look for, is how does the ball leave the player's hands. So if the ball comes out the hands backwards, yes, his momentum might mean it travels in the air forwards. If that had been 5 metres back and hadn't crossed the line, I don't think we'd be talking about it now. We'd probably talk about Italy having won that game. And I think that then was where the apology from World Rugby came in and said, look, because World Rugby will review every game, they'll review every decision. Referees, TMOs, assistant referees have to go on a call on the Monday after a game with the World Rugby coaches, and then they'll sit and not justify but explain why they made decisions, what they did, and they'll be told, well, this is right or this is wrong. And that's then fed back to the coaches, because I'm pretty certain the Italian coaches would have been sending that clip in going, why was this not a try? So there's a pretty robust review process, and then accountability of, I suppose, good decisions and bad decisions, and folk get stuff wrong. It's as much as we want to make 100% decisions, you get things wrong. Same as players. Get England lost on Saturday by 2 points. Their goal kicker missed 3 kicks at goal, but everybody's talking about
didn't go underneath the post.
Didn't go underneath the post.
He's trying to celebrate instead of thinking about his kicker.
They threw a 50-50 to give France the ball back. So there's so many different facets of the game, but typically everybody remembers the dodgy penalty the referee gives, or the dodgy forward pass that they chalk off a try for. But I suppose that's just the nature of it.
There was another instance. I suppose this is where your role as assistant referee might have been called into. Was maybe it was the Ireland England game? The Italian referee got injured and had to
Yeah,
swap the referee out.
yeah.
So that would all be predetermined who would take over in that scenario.
So you would everybody effectively move up the pecking order. So you're a referee, there's an assistant referee 1, assistant referee 2, and then a fourth official or a number 4. So all sort of professional games, that sort of order will be in place. And if the referee goes down, everybody jumps up one spot effectively. It doesn't happen that often. It actually happened, the only professional URC game I've refereed in the middle was when Irish referee Andy Brace pulled his calf in the warm-up against Glasgow, and he came in and said, my calf's knackered. I was like, okay, how's knackered? He's like, yeah, you handed me the whistle. I was like, right, okay. So about 10 minutes to get going on that. So it does happen every now and again, but it's not a regular occurrence.
So what does the world of refereeing look for you now going forward? You said there's maybe not only so much you can go to, possibly because your full-time job is completely different. So where does that lead you to in terms of how far in the refereeing world can you go?
I don't necessarily think it's probably down to the full-time job. I'm sure there's probably just a bit of lack of ability to get to the top level. It's so hard. You think of the number of players that play to get in, I don't know, a Scotland international team, and it's probably a smaller percentage are referees because there's less and less of them. So at the moment, I'm happy. I get the ability to sort of try and have the best of both worlds. I'm regularly sort of running touch and TMO and in URC and Champions Cup, which is great. Just good tournaments to be involved in, and would like, if the opportunity arose, I suppose the next sort of stage for me would be to try and sort of break into more of the international sort of short window. And again, like you just have to if you keep performing well at the level you are performing at, the hope would be more opportunities come further up the ladder. It doesn't always work out that way, and as I've found out, professional sport is professional sport. It can be quite cutthroat at times. There can be decisions made that you don't understand. You're not sure why. You compare yourself and go, how are they getting these games and I'm not, or how's he getting picked and I'm not? And I've kind of, I suppose, learned a wee bit. You can't control why other people are getting picked or why you're not getting picked. You can only perform to the best of your ability. And if other folk deem that good enough to give you a game at a higher level, then great, happy days. If not, I'm kind of at the stage now, I don't lose any sleep over it. If it comes, it comes. If not, I'm pretty happy with the stuff I've done so far. So yeah, I probably wouldn't get too stressed about that now.
We're quite interested to hear on this topic of, we had a few athletes on, a few Scottish ones, the likes of George Munsey and Apatal, and we're having this conversation with them about abuse on social media, and they were finding a lot of abuse as both as cricketers. It was quite interesting, a lot of people betting, and they were getting abused a lot from people, gamblers.
Right, okay,
they maybe had lost like bets on certain things, and they were finding that, like, obviously you have your own practice, and it's important your own practice with the patients, that you're probably on your practice website, you know, as the owner, so you're going to be quite easy found by random people. Is that a concern for you? Is there them issues with rugby referees? I'm presuming soccer referees, because of the types of sports, would definitely be in the firing seat from some of the fans. Is that an issue with yourselves as well?
I'm very much aware of it. I suppose I've been fortunate in that I have not received anything I would class as serious abuse. I'm very aware of being with other referees, and we go into the changing room after a game and their phone's buzzing away, and it's folk messaging them on social media sites, critiquing their performance, shall we say. And like it's mad. Like I can't sometimes get my head around it. But I think that's the world that we live in these days. You've got 20, 30 years ago, before phones, you would have you would have said to your mate in the pub, "Oh, that ref's had a shocker." Like, yeah, fine, but the ref doesn't hear it. But to then actually go onto your phone to search for the referee, or in worst cases, search for the referee's family and send them abusive messages regarding their performance, my head just can't sort of square that sometimes. So I do think I've been fortunate, and I've not had anything that I would take too sort of seriously. But the authorities have put stuff in place. I think it was the Champions Cup last season. We had all to, as a group of sort of referees from all the countries, we had to enter, give them our sort of social media handles or details and email addresses. And they were using AI to screen for messages that would be potentially abusive, and would then intercept and look to, I don't think prosecute's the right word, but look to block or stop the messages from getting through. I'm not sure how the AI did that. It was never anything that I experienced, but I know more of the senior referees, the guys and girls that are on the screen all the time, this is something that they're having to deal with on a weekly basis. But
we are delighted to have Ionate as a sponsor for the Sports Dentistry podcast. Are you looking for a water bottle that's built to keep up with your active lifestyle? Look no further than Ionate, the totally leak-proof water bottles with triple lock technology to prevent spills no matter where you're headed. With a simple one-touch opening mechanism, you can sip on the go without hassle. Plus, Ionate's sleek modern designs are not only functional but can be personalised just for you. Made from high quality steel, these bottles are easy to clean and best of all, they're sustainable. From 320ml to 1200ml, Ionate has the perfect size for you, whether you're just out for a jog or going on a long hike. And it doesn't stop at water bottles. Ionate also has travel mugs and flasks to keep your drinks just right wherever you are. Ionate have officially licensed water bottles for the NBA, NFL, MotoGP and British and Irish Lions, so you know you're getting the best. I have been using the bottles for a long time now and cannot recommend them highly enough. So head over to www.ionate.co.uk to get your hands on the best bottles in the business, bar none. Now back to the pod.
I think's mad.
Yeah, you see it so much on social media, people complaining about referees.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that goes on to, you talked about Holly before, Holly's broken so many barriers when it comes to refereeing and being the first woman to referee in a men's Six Nation game and stuff, and she did. It's funny because I messaged her saying, "Oh, that's great news, congratulations," because I kind of know her through working at Scottish Rugby and the practice and stuff too, and you. From the outside looking in, and you were seeing people saying stuff about her performance and whatever else, and you're just like, God, when you know the person, it just cuts a bit deeper as well, even if you don't know her that well, but well enough to be like, that's just, people are just saying things, and it's very easy for people to be keyboard warriors and sit there and make up fake names and say things, and I find that really uncomfortable. I find it really tough to watch, because now, when my daughter grows up, and I'm sure with your kids as well, as you grow up, I just don't really know what kind of world they're going to be living in, and how easy it is going to be for people. Just if you don't like something, just the first thing you do is you post a negative review or comment. And it's funny because when you have a really nice meal and you go to a really nice restaurant, you get really nice food, you're not really inclined to always write a nice review, right? But if you have a bad experience, you're more inclined. And it's just the mentality, isn't it?
Absolutely. And again, it works exactly the same for the dental practice. You treat so many patients on a daily basis that walk out the door and they're satisfied and they're really happy and they want to come back and they see you every 6 months, and you get the one person that gives you a hard time every day. No matter what you do, you try your best to help them, and then they go up the road and they give you a 1-star, tell you how crap you were and how you ruined their day, and you're like, all right, okay. But I get,
but that's right. It's the handful that occupy 95% of your brain, and that's why I'm saying. I mean, me and John talk quite a lot about just dentistry as well, but it's always just the few that occupy so much.
Yeah,
that's just the way. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is, and I'm sure most dentists, if not all dentists, probably feel the same.
Yeah, and I don't imagine dentistry is any different to any other industry or walk of life, and that there's always one or two that ruin it for everyone. And I think we talk about our girls are 8 and 5 now, and the longer you can keep them off mobile phones, the better, sort of thing. But I think you would just try and, in general, as a society, if you can treat others the way you'd want to be treated, I think everybody everybody get along a lot better, as you say, as opposed to individuals hiding behind phones or screens or keyboards and shooting their mouths off with no real substance or basis to it. It'd be interesting to see if these folk knew the impact it had, or their words had on the folk that were aiming it at. They might think a bit differently.
Yeah, definitely, it's a topic. I'd like to get a viewpoint of something that has changed quite a lot in rugby recently, and that's the awareness for concussion. So me and Umar found ourselves working a lot more closely now with the rugby teams, with the intelligent mouth guards and getting the players fitted for the chip for the mouth guards.
Yeah.
Firstly, with your own playing career, did you notice a change in mindset there? I'm sure, like, years ago it was like just get up and get on with type thing. Had it changed by the time you had finished your playing career? And then how has that looked recently with refereeing and things in rugby and that awareness of?
Yeah, night and day from when I was a kid to finishing up playing rugby at 30 sort of thing, just in terms of the awareness of concussion. There were probably times playing university rugby on a Wednesday, guys would get a bang in the head. It would be the old magic sponge round the neck. They'll be all right, get them on the bus up the road, and they're sitting having 6 pints on the bus on the way home. And you look back now and you think, oh my God, like what were we doing? Like, this is madness.
Yeah.
But we just didn't know, I suppose. Or maybe not we didn't know, we were probably just naive, and that it wasn't in the public domain. The first time I ever really knew or sort of had a discussion about concussion, there was a guy that played for Dundee High School. He played open side, and he went down to jackal on the ball, and he got cleaned out and he got knocked out. And he went through, the doctors there at the high school were great, and they wouldn't let him play for 3 or 4 weeks, and he came back, and his first game back, he got knocked out again. I think it was maybe a different thing, but he got basically 3 concussions in about a 6-month period, and the doctor was just like, you need to give up. This is not worth it. And I was like, oh, what do you mean give up? Like, he's really good at rugby. He's still pretty young. He's only 24, something like that. He's really good. And he was like, he keeps banging his head. Like, we can put a plaster on a broken bone. We can fix muscles. He says, we don't know the damage that this is doing to his head. And in 5, 10, and I remember the conversation. I was a bit like, I've never thought of it that way. I just didn't. Again, I was naive. I didn't know, didn't think about it. And then off the back of that, the sort of sit him out, if in doubt, sit him out sort of message was starting to come out. To the extent now, and don't get me wrong, at the professional level, the collisions are much bigger. The professional game and the game I played as an amateur are different sports. Just the conditioning of the players it's unbelievable. The size and the hits and the physicality of them now. And the mouth guards have been a brilliant sort of invention or evolution, I suppose, to help manage them, because you get guys that are getting knocked out and it's a semi-final and they've got to play the final next week, and they're not going to tell the coach. They're going to say, oh yeah, I'm fine, I'm all right. I'm not, yeah, no, I wasn't knocked out, I was all right, it was just a bit like whatever, because these guys are, you're professional athletes, you want to play at the games. Whereas I think the biggest momentum shift I saw was your man in the Lions in the summer, Ringrose.
Gary Ringrose. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I know, well, I don't know for a fact, but I would bet a fair bit of money there'd be a lot of other players in his situation who would just maybe brush the symptoms under the carpet and go, this is a deciding Lions test. I'm just going to get on with it. I would, if I'd been in that position, I'd have probably done the same and wanted to play, because you've trained for that for all your life. And like, fair play to him for him to take himself out the team and out the situation because of that, for something that a physiotherapist can't say, or your hamstrings pulled or your shoulder's gone sort of thing. Like, he would have been the only one that had sort of known that. And I think that shows how far the responsibility or the message has come, that there is a responsibility from everybody involved in the game to look after folk, because unfortunately you're seeing more of these cases now where ex-players are coming out and having issues with their head, having issues with their brain, that again, probably they were aware of the risks involved when they played rugby back in the day, but probably not aware of where they would end up 10, 15, 20 years down post-rugby. So there's still, I think there's still a bit to go in terms of making rugby safe, but it still is a contact sport, and it will never be, I think the guys that play it at that level are accepting that there's a chance here I might bang my head, or there's a chance here I might, as you always would, break your shoulder, break your knee, whatever it would be. But there's more now in place for when guys do get head knocks, that they're taken out or looked after properly before they're allowed to play again, which can only be a good thing.
Yeah, and the laws have changed to quite a bit to facilitate that. Have you? How was that adjusting to the law changes?
It can be difficult. The professional game is still just any tackles below the shoulder. The domestic game in Scotland had brought in a trial, and I think they might be making it permanent, where they're looking at the sternum for tackle height. So again, just taking that sort of 6-12 inches from the top of the neck to the sternum and dropping that, and trying to reduce head contacts from tackles. I think the first few months of it was a bit of a shambles. There was about 45 penalties a game for high tackles, because boys were swinging up onto shoulders that they could do previously, and then all of a sudden they weren't allowed. But I think, like anything, if it's consistently refereed, then the players have to adapt. The coaches have to coach to tackle lower, because if they don't, they give away penalties and probably will lose the game. And then the referees have to sort of stick to be consistent with it. And my understanding is that those trials have shown that there is a reduction in head injuries. Now, the counter argument to that is, if you go low, are you more likely to bang your head off somebody's hip or knee and be concussed that way? I don't know the statistics for that. Again, that's probably just you're playing a contact sport, and that's part of the risk of it. But if you can take the ones where it's a shoulder direct to someone's head out of the equation, then you're hopefully reducing things, or reducing the impacts, and then making things a lot safer.
Yeah, I think the rules and the laws of the game will continue to change, and like the IMGs have come in and they're changing every year. They're always making, like this year, they've obviously introduced the lighting and the red colour as well, to make it a little bit more visible. So these little things will make contact sport hopefully safer, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. And as you mentioned there before, like, it's not what happens immediately, it's in the aftermath, in years to come, when we're talking about head injuries and concussions. And that's where dentistry and sports dentistry really comes into it, where we're working field of play and we're helping the medics recognise these signs and symptoms, and obviously help facilitate scanning for the mouth guards. And hopefully the time will come when we'll be able to have a bit more emphasis in how these mouth guards are made with the companies, rather than it just being purely focused on the data and the chip. But the number one thing that we talk about is the mouth guard has to do its number one thing, which is protect the teeth. That's what it's there for, and that's why we advocate that, especially custom made ones. The chip obviously is a significant progress in how we're trying to make it a safer sport, not just in rugby, because we saw the British bobsleigh, the name escapes me, but he got the gold medal. He was wearing a prevent mouth guard because of the data that was capturing too. So it just goes to show you there's so many different sports that these devices and these mouth guards that we are making is making a big difference. And in rugby, pretty much the fact that World Rugby have said it's mandatory now for all the elite players to wear it is a big step.
Yeah. It's really interesting from a dental and a rugby point of view on it. I know it's mandatory. You still get some guys that don't wear them. And I'm not sure how we enforce. I'm not sure as referees we could go, you have to leave the field until you wear your mouth guard.
No,
maybe we could.
I think the stick is they can't have a head injury assessment if they're not wearing it.
Yeah.
So that's what they're losing out on.
Yeah. So is that just if there's a suspected concussion, it's just
they're
remove
gone.
Straight away.
Yeah.
So there's no chance of them coming back. Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny. must have been 2 years ago for the Scotland-England game. I was in number 4. And I think that was one of the first times they'd used the new mouth guards. And they were a bit oversensitive. And I think Xander had... Xander's
was it George Turner? Was it not George? Was it not George
No,
Turner?
he was the first one to be removed.
He was the first one to be removed, right?
I think
Okay,
Xander's got triggered, and he was like, he came off and he was raging, and I was just like, I don't shoot the messenger. I'm literally the mouth guard doctors come to me and said your mouth guard's buzzing, and he was like, I think it was I think like Scott Cummings had kicked him in the back of the head on a ruck or something like that, and he was like, there's nothing in this. I've not made a tackle. I can't be coming off for an HIA. And then I think because my understanding was they got rushed in quite quickly, and then not teething issues, but like anything, they evolve over time. And I think, as you say, I think the chips have improved, and they can now work out like specific incidences as opposed to it not just it breached a threshold, therefore you have to come off.
Yeah, and there was players setting it off by clapping it in their hands.
Yeah, that's it. Or the goal kicker would put it in his sock. Yeah, that's the other one. Yeah. He'd come off for an HIA after a conversion.
Yeah. And how have you done with the practice in the dentistry? Do you try to keep everything separate, or would you use like being would you classify yourself as semi-professional referee? Would you use that to help build a rapport in the practice? Or do you just try to keep the things completely separate?
No, I mean, I have a good group of patients. I've been there for now about 6 or 7 years, and they know you fairly well. And you know the guys that are going to come in on a Monday morning after you've been holding a flag at Scotstoun or the Hive or something like that, and give you a bit of banter because you missed a forward pass, and there's always a good bit of chat about it. We probably off the back of it, I've seen a few more, like through my refereeing, have got more patients to the practice, because you speak to guys in rugby circles and they go, I didn't realise I actually work in East Kilbride. Can I come and see you to get my teeth? Yeah, that's sort of fine, sort of thing. We do a bit of work. We go down and we sponsor my old club Hamilton. There's probably a bit of sentimental value involved in that as well. I'm involved a wee bit there still, but we go down and we do mouth guards for the men's, the women's, the kids teams at the start of every season to get the nurses down mixing alginate and making mouth guards, and sort of use the two. I definitely don't keep it separate. Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a reason to keep them separate. I think they, again, although completely different, there's definite benefits that can work from the two. Again, they're probably two good icebreakers just in conversations. The amount of dentists that you know that are involved or like sports, you can get chatting to them about rugby and their sports and vice versa. The amount of folk that at rugby you then get talking about, I've been looking at getting my teeth straightened, is that something you do? And then all of a sudden they're coming round to have a look at sort of doing that. So yeah, no, they definitely complement each other.
That's good.
Well, David, listen, that's been an absolutely brilliant conversation. I did say to John that you would definitely bring your A game, and it would be a very good conversation. And I think it's very different to any of the other guests that we've had, in terms of we've had professional athletes on that's their career, or we've had Abda, who was a dental student who's now doing a professional, and you're kind of doing both. So it's really great to get your insight into what you're doing, and there'll be many people out there who are probably doing something with what you're doing, not necessarily in rugby. They could be doing it in hockey, they could be doing it in American football in the States, or whatever else it is. And it's really nice that you're able to still continue doing what you love, because don't tell me you love dentistry, because nobody does, right? So
some days it's okay.
Yeah.
So you're doing something that you love, which is obviously rugby and refereeing, and then doing that with your kind of inverted commas full-time job as well. So it's great to see, and thanks very much for giving up your time to chat to John and I today.
No, not a problem. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for.
Yeah, it's been great, David. Thanks very much for coming on. Have you any big when's your next refereeing? Have you something coming up?
Yeah, I'm at Scotstoun on Saturday night. Scotstoun versus Leinster. Glasgow versus Leinster.
Glasgow, Leinster, that's right, yeah.
So
that'll be a good game.
That should be quite tasty.
There's a lot of talk about who Leinster played number 10 because of all the debate in Ireland at the moment.
Yeah,
so
I think
quite interesting.
Again, you've kind of you're not sure till the teams come out. You don't know how many of the Six Nations boys will be rested, because I mean Glasgow Leinster is not going to be far, or Glasgow Leinster first teams wouldn't be too far off a Scotland Ireland sort of match basically.
At least half.
But I don't know how many of the guys will be released to play. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Hopefully a nice sunny night at Scotstoun, or 5:30 on a Saturday night in March. We'll probably have about 3 thermals on because it'll be freezing cold.
Well, the weather's been pretty good, but I do know at Scotstoun it's very windy in Scotstoun.
It's always,
it's just very windy. Yeah, nice stadium, but it's very, very windy.
Yeah, between that and the Hive, there's always a gale blowing down one way of the pitch. Hence why they're both artificial pitches in Scotland.
I was always wondering why you run faster at one side than the other side. It must be because of the wind.
And fatigue in the second half. I've only got 40 good minutes in me.
Good man, Dave. That's been great, buddy. Thanks very much.
Yeah, no, not a problem. Thank you.
Cheers.